Hi, complete piece here. I've been talking a lot about the brain. We know that the brain creates God, creates everything. Okay, keep that in mind. Let's go back to the time where the Abrahamic religions were created. And basically, we have all religions came from Egypt. Then we have the Roman Empire that adopted them. We have they have the sacred books. It was immense. Then we have they worship many gods, very tolerant, all kind of worships and everything else. Julius Caesar was a man of the people, was a son of Venus, and he protected the infirm, and he forgave the sins. The Senate hated him, and that killing him. The Jews, they were not called Jews. They were Christi. They were the speculators. They were merchants of the empire. They've been merchants for 2,000 years. That was their religion, being merchants. They adopted the religions of the places that they did business with. A lot of information there. The Roman Empire was vast. Julius Caesar was declared a god by Octavius, his grandnephew. The Octavius became the new god. He adopted everything. He created the Pax Romana. He was considered the Prince of Peace. He was the Son of God, and he actually established the years to be counted since he became a god. And actually it was a 15-year difference. So that's the reason we have Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. It started with Octavius. The Roman Empire is extremely vast. A lot of the merchants established themselves in the province of Judea. You have Arabs and Muslims, there were no Muslims at the time, Arabs and all these different tribes, and established in Judea. In the city of Jerusalem, it became eventually Jerusalem. There was no Solomon, there is no David, there is none, no evidence of none of these people. They are just fictitious, they are fairy tales. But Herod was the king there. He was actually loved. He was a tremendous builder. And he created all that. He built a temple in the city to the Roman gods, especially Julius Caesar, that had mutated with Jupiter. That's in the Mount Moriah. Now, these are facts, the historical facts. The rest is bullshit because there's no archaeological evidence of a Solomon or David or Moses or none of that stuff. Or a Jewish empire. Never happened. It was only the Roman Empire. And that comes to Jerusalem. The Roman Empire was very vast and tremendously tolerant of all religions. That's the reason there were no fights, no religious fights. Yeah. And it grew and it grew and it grew. But what happened was that eventually there were many cults to Caesar. Octavius wanted to dominate. He says, I'm the only true God, and he started that. He started the idea, like the Catholic Church has now, the Christianity is only Christianity, or you worship only one God, otherwise we'll kill you. Octavius started that, the Son of God, Octavius. So anyway, he started developing only one religion to be accepted, that of his family. It was Julius, and him as a god. Of course, he died, and this continued, and then eventually, all the other religions start losing ground. And by the 4th century, Constantine, trying to completely destroy all the other sects and every other religion, he says only the religion of the gods in heaven, the Christus, which it was actually Julius Caesar had mutated. All the little fairy tales have changed to be worshipped as the only true accepted religion of the empire. That's what Christianity started. That began the disintegration of the Roman Empire. And that eventually created all this idea of the Jews being the Christ killers and all the little fairy tales, because the god Caesar had been killed in a theater, the theater of Pompeii. His sacred blood was given there. So that's where the whole thing started. And all the fairy tales changed. And all the inventions of David and Moses and all the Solomon and the rest of the nonsense were transformed from the holy city of Rome, the only true holy city, to the supposedly holy city of Jerusalem. Nothing happened in Jerusalem. That's when you cannot find one scintilla of evidence, even in coins. Nothing about a Christ or a Moses or a David or Solomon. Nothing. It's a Roman temple, and this eventually will end up with the delusions and the stagnation of the intellect and the little fairy tales that the Christians believe. And the Jews and the Muslims. Everything started in Rome. The Roman Empire was responsible for Judaism, as we know today, was responsible. And, don't get bullshit with this Book of Moses and Septuagint. They were Hellenistic books that were transferred to Rome, and Rome had the Sibylline oracles, which everybody believed in and everybody copied them. And that's why you have the Bible and Talmud and the rest of the bullshit and even the Quran. But now we have the psychosis manifests itself in the city of nuts, Jerusalem, with something that is called the Jerusalem.
Here, he's channeling the spirit of Jesus in Jerusalem.
The lives of people who will worship him and him alone.
Gary Frazier, a self-styled specialist in biblical prophecy, is the founder of the Texas-based Discovery Ministries.
Look at that.
I want to tell you.
You go to any sanatorium and you will find the same type of people with the same identical reasoning. It is nuts.
An emotional and spiritual experience is one thing.
It's a model of the temple of Jupiter at Baalbek, Lebanon, and the one in Moriah had the same thing. And look at this, look at the synagogue, a Roman temple, depicts a Roman temple in a synagogue in 4th century. These merchants are banging their head on a Roman temple. By 120 CE, the Son of God, Emperor Hadrian, which was loved by a lot of people, was a great builder. He rebuilt the temple that had been destroyed in Jerusalem, in Mount Moriah. And that's the temple, the ruins of the temple we see today. Then, after Christianity took over in the 4th century and all that, then the Christians start, everything disintegrated and start building churches everywhere where the temples were. Then the Muslims came around and started conquering Jerusalem, in the 7th century. And they took Jerusalem because they have the little fairy tales of the Jews and the Christians and everybody else. And they're building in the Quran. And they built a temple right at the Dome of the Rock that you see today. So we have 3 religions, 3 psychoses in that city of. Look at this. Psychosis.
Psychiatrist for the Jerusalem district.
Poor guy.
Put those pieces together.
והיא ללא ספק מציגה את אותה תמונה שאנחנו קראנו לה תסמונת ירושלים. תסמונת ירושלים, הדבר שמייחד אותה בעיניי,
religion is, it's schizophrenia. It's a form of schizophrenia. A cute angel is stopping Abraham from killing Isaac. This fairy tale will create the Abrahamic psychopathy that's still with us today, killing everyone.
Where a human being is willing to sacrifice himself for God is even holier. That is even holier.
This is how the psychosis of this fairy tale emerged. There was a guy named Abraham, and God told him to sacrifice his son. So he went over to Mount Moriah, and over there he was going to kill his son named Isaac. And then, of course, the angel said, "Oh, I was just testing you." So now the people, the Jews believe that Isaac, they descended from Isaac. The Muslims believe it's Ishmael, the same guy. This all happened in Mount Moriah, and in that Dome of the Rock, that's when the whole thing happened. Christians believe in the Dome of the Rock. That's when Christ went to heaven and all that shit. And then the Jews believe that's what, so the whole thing is a mess. It's a fairy tale that is, is caused all this problem. It's a retardation. All these lunatics, everything happened in Mount Moriah, in a Roman temple, the Holy of Holies of a Roman temple rebuilt by Hadrian, with Jupiter, Optimus Max, with worship. And that's what, Isaac was almost being killed. That's what Muhammad ascended to heaven in the same dome, in the mosque, that area there. That's what Christ and the Virgin Mary ascended to heaven. And they're nuts. These people are nuts. They belong in mental institutions. That's the reason I call Jerusalem the city of nuts. The Vatican is another one. Religious beliefs are a mental illness. And the problem that these Christians, the Abrahamic, has is that they are retarded. In other words, they read only one book over and over and over, a 1,500-year-old text that they accept as reality today in the 21st century. So, out to the asylum with these nuts. They're screwing up the world. Pace de oro.